OOCS Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 371, Capes and Conundrums. There was a slight shift to the air shortly before she went to bed, and as a woman in her job, with her position, she turned the lights back on and went looking around, pistol in hand. Something was wrong. Something was. The winds under her command hurl her backwards and out of the firing line of a laser blast before coalescing in a shield that takes the next one by igniting and forcing the beam to expend all its power. Of course that scorches the carpet something fierce, but better the carpet than her face. She exhales and gathers the spent breath in her hand before hardening it into a trinity of spikes. The smoke is covering her movement as she senses the movement of the air and hurls the invisible spikes of compressed air through the smoke screen and towards the source of the disturbance. They dodge and the laser sweeps the area, before something else is suddenly in the area and there's a brutal smack followed by the distinct sound of someone slamming into a wall. She rushes through, gathering the smoke in one hand to form a spear and pausing. It's him, the blank-eyed undaunted, standing tall over a Tret woman with his foot on her laser pistol. He glances at her and with a twitch of his foot sends the assassin's weapon sliding away and under her favorite plush chair. "And what are you doing here?" she demands him. "You're welcome, Miss Mangler. What are you doing here?" "You were recently involved in some nonsense relating to us. We kept a casual eye pointed your way just in case and noticed a break-in," Harold states before turning his gaze down at the unconscious woman at his feet. "Do you recognize her?" "I do not," Miss Mangler replies. "I see. Things are certainly getting curious around you, ma'am," he says as he pulls out a pair of cuffs and binds the hands of the Tret woman. Before pulling out a small bag, he inverts around his hand. "I'm going to retrieve that weapon now. While we investigate these things with the local police, do you want to be kept up to date by us or the police?" "The police. I know where I stand with them. Not so much with you and your kind," she says tightly. "Fair enough," he replies before he goes over to her favorite chair, gently pushes it out of the way, uses the bag to pick up the weapon, which he then seals, then slides the chair back into place. "Excuse me." He then grabs her attempted assassin and vanishes with her. Mangler has a lot to think about. This could have just been exactly what he claimed it was, but it also might not be. Scene change, Hafid. There are certain levels of subtlety when trailing people. Sometimes you want to be completely unnoticed. That is when you wish to see them being honest. Other times you want them painfully aware of you, where they then panic and can often corner themselves while also extracting themselves from crowds. If they're the smarter types and go for help, that's useful too, if you have backup that they will mistake for civilians that might help shield them. Nothing like a target learning that the cover they're using is the real opponent. Then there was what he was doing. There's a certain level of being seen that causes prey to act more cautiously rather than outright panic. It slows their movement, gathers their attention, but rarely provokes confrontation, which is what his brother needs. While a few listening devices in a man's office can be easily inserted, more advanced, specific, and detailed tracking methods require more time and skill to install appropriately. And Hafid's duty in this light is to keep the eye of Mr. Tonk thoroughly pointed the wrong way as Drac performs his own duties and places a tiny, protein-based recording device into the very heart of the computer. It broadcasts to only one place, records nothing, is off when the computer is off, on when it is on, and blends perfectly with the heart of the machine. Drac claimed he needed 10 minutes of perfect privacy, but Mr. Tonk works in a public office, so more likely it would take a bit longer. Hafid was aiming to give his brother at least an hour. Still, the balance of having him paranoid and looking out, but neither outright fleeing nor confronting him, is difficult at the best of times. Let alone when the man may actually be guilty of an enormous conspiracy to prevent the restoration of an entire species. To say nothing of the fact that Mr. Tonk has several odd gaps in his background. He was an adoptive child, genetically a clone produced for someone else. But the question as to who this mysterious parent was is near non-existent. Tonk is the only name they have, but there is no image, no date of birth, some educational credentials that prove they had undergone both basic and advanced education, particularly in finance. But the only true proof they were real is that they were a voice-only consultant to several banks. It was being damnably frustrating to learn anything about them. But Hafid was having suspicions, not good ones, and ones he hoped dearly were mere conspiracy. Granted, his allies in his quest to restore the natives would see it as a boon, but to have the very essence of a species violated in such a way. No, remain focused. Supposition and conspiracy crafting are only of use if there are proper concerns. Tonk prospers alongside the colonies in a manner that would be interfered with, if not greatly lessened, by the return of the natives. That is motivation enough for them. Hafid reminds himself before he hears something approaching quickly. He lets go of his perch and allows himself to drop. The object curves mid-flight and comes for him still. He becomes as shadow and is struck by the weapon despite this. He lets out a shriek of pain as something buries itself into his back, and he hardens his being as much as he can, just in time for him to defend himself from the detonation. He is sent screaming to the ground, barely able to focus upon more than simply not coming apart due to the sheer stresses upon his person, and crashes into the unyielding concrete below. There is the sound of screams as the world swims and Hafid concentrates on simply keeping himself alive. Unless his foe was simply looking to murder, then they've already gotten what they want, and to be quite honest, he likely looks quite dead. He staunches his bleeding and then gathers a touch more focus to himself, allowing himself to sort out the sheer madness his ears detect. Above him, there is an entire whirling swarm of Sonir, and he can sense, yes, several are coming for him. And he is gently lifted up. He's safe. But what hit him? What reorients itself in the air and matches dark Araminta-style phasing? Father, he asks. I have you. You're going to live, brutality assures him. Scene change, Terry. He looks down in shock at the scene. This was his fault. Whatever his uncle had gotten mixed up in was only happening because he had teleported him from Albrith to here. The whole city was in an uproar, and people were panicking and he takes a breath. Remembering what he's been taught, if an enemy has done something, you need to understand two things above all others. What was done, and why it was done. What was done was that Uncle Hafid is now publicly injured. Grandpa Brutality is with him. Ace is moving in fast, as is Nightwings and Todd and Drac. Everyone is looking here. Everyone is in a panic. It's a distraction. He launches off the side of the building and forms gliding wings along his arms in a similar shape to that of his family, but pulls himself along as well, allowing full flight with limited movement. The weapon was in pieces after it blew up, and most are down below, but if the perch Uncle Hafid was at had anything to do with it. He lands in the area where the bomb went off and starts scanning. There are chips of shattered glossy black stone. The biggest piece has a strange angular marking carved into it, lined with kutha. The symbol is a trinity of sharp points with a thick end rounded going towards a fourth that, is it a thumb? Is this the shape of someone's hand? Or was this mark carved out in a single movement by someone who goes through stone? He has no way of knowing, but he does have a table back in the Vinik Nebula with a bunch of nebula matter on it. So that's where the piece of obsidian goes to. He can recognize it now. It's actually shameful how long it took him to recognize it. The smaller chips appear next to the larger one he found as he scours the area, and then he looks up and images where Uncle Hafid was hanging and which way he was facing. The attack no doubt came from behind, so he traces the trail through the sky, and it leads directly to a taller building right next to it. Terry nods and then runs to the edge of the platform before launching off and growing the wings again to help him ascend through the air and reach the top of the building. The falling ash is already covering a lot. Whatever traces were her are already gone. He starts using the wings to give off little bursts of air to sweep the ash away and reveal markings in the stone of the building, right at the edge. He sweeps the ashes away and looks down at it. He then pulls out his communicator and takes a picture. This is seeming to match up. Whoever threw the weapon has claws that go right through both obsidian and concrete easily. He lowers himself and tries to feel out any potential axiom out of the marking and gets nothing. But that could mean that a small amount was used and enough time passed to wash it away, or none was used and they have powerful claws, or a number of other things. Axiom is a dead end. The astral forest rips him through space and time, even as something starts to pierce his suit, but he's gone and landing directly in front of a doctor back in the nebula before the blow can do more than draw blood. An obsidian crescent with a Kutha-laced claw marking clatters into place on the table, right next to the chips of the previously thrown weapon. Scene change. Harold. Okay, calm down. Just stay calm, all right? You're still in one piece, and you're in a safe place. You're going to survive. You did it. You did good, Harold says into his communicator. Terry had called him in an outright panic. He had just been healed after nearly getting killed. A black blade in the shape of an obsidian crescent, the size of his head, had nearly taken his head off, and if not for the astral forest, he'd be a dead man. The kid was panicking and not in a good place. This was the closest he had ever come to death in a very real way, and was trying to sort through it all, while also trying to be helpful. But the fear, panic, and just raw youth was getting in his way. It's okay, you're okay. Hafid is alive and getting attention, and the clues you've grabbed are going to be a huge help. You did really good. The cut was as long as my finger in my neck, a little bit to the front, and take some time for yourself, Terry. Calm down and relax. You did good. I know that. It just... Huh. Ah, Terry breathes out. I know you've had your first brush with death, and that's terrifying. I know, relax. Just let it pass through you. There's nothing wrong with being afraid of death. You're not. I know how to use my fear. You'll figure it out too. This is awful. Why would anyone want to... No, I know the answer, Terry says. And what answer is that? So others don't have to? That's one reason, one of the better ones. What's a bad one? One that I use among others. Which is? I love the rush. You're crazy. Yes. You're supposed to deny being called crazy. Says who? Says me. You're not the boss of me? Yes, I am. What? No, you're not. Yes, I am, Terry says right away and with a lot more energy in his voice. No, you're not. Yes, I am. Yes, you are. Not falling for it, Terry chimes out. Damn it. Hanging up now, Harold says, and Terry outright laughs as Harold ends the call. He's going to be okay. Good. OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 372. Capes and conundrums. He had refused to allow himself to be knocked out. He had been complacent, he had been careless, and he deserved the pain that had come with both the injury and the resulting healing. It also meant that he was awake, aware, and able to contribute when Harold arrived with news. He's alive, though? Brutality asks. Alive and receiving medical attention? I doubt he'll have a physical scar. Harold answers. Implying you think he will have a mental one? This is his first brush with real malice. Before it was brainless monsters made by a monster. Scary, but not a person. It's different when an animal or mindless thing attacks you, but a person makes the choice, and someone chose to try and kill him. I see. His first brush with violence? While their method of grabbing him was reprehensible, the Order of Inward Enlightenment treated him well. Despite his natural gifts as a member of your family, and despite his own desires, he's still not a fully grown man and isn't fully ready to deal with such things. To say nothing of just how close that attack came to killing him. He's staring mortality right in the face, and he was not ready for it. Harold explains, and Brutality nods. That is a common reaction. How is he handling it? He's back in the nebula, receiving medical attention, and I managed to get him to laugh before our conversation ended. So he seems like he's just rattled and not broken, but it's too early to really tell. Do we know who attacked him? Another sorcerer sent these to me, Harold says, holding up a pair of clear bags. In one are glossy, sharp chips of obsidian. The other is a head-sized crescent blade, deliberately and expertly carved into the shape to form a deadly throwing weapon. Terry picked them up after realizing that Hafid being attacked was a likely distraction. He didn't get far before the attacker returned. This is an extreme escalation, Drax says, rubbing his chin. Going after ancient bones is one thing. It's another entirely to execute two people in public. That's if they're actually part of the same conspiracy. This could be a random nutcase, Harold says. Far too organized and well-timed for that. Brutality dismisses. Maybe, but there's always a chance, Harold remarks. There's also the fact that Insight's friend has trying to help us by getting people to expose themselves. I'm not sure this is part of it, but I don't think it's her style, Harold says. Is there something we should know? Brutality asks. The situation is still somewhat delicate, Harold says. In what manner? A militaristic bioengineered species is taking its first steps into a social sphere, and they're helping with things. But it's hard to know what I can and cannot tell you, Harold states. However, I can tell you that one of them has a very, very well-trusted contact from odd circumstances, and this contact has led to her showing us numerous parts of this conspiracy. Ah, yes, her. You frightened her by seeing her receive that information, Hafid says from his medical bed. I did. It took my brother to calm her down, and her contact giving her some advice. We need to move carefully. A weapon like this can come from anywhere. Potentially, but notice the detail. It's all edges. There is no place to grip it normally, so people with fleshy palms are out. Unless Axiom is the major factor for using this weapon, it matched my position and phase with me. That's a high level of Axiom skill, something that needs to be learned and practiced, Hafid states. That's very true. However, we need to start digging through data files to try and figure things out. Scene change, insight beyond, simple understanding, and her friend. She uses a new trick that her friend helped her learn to walk over the rolling dunes of ash without disturbing them, bouncing on a surface so fragile that she was maybe a few steps away from walking on clouds. And wouldn't that be neat? She has to be quiet, even if this place is very pretty. Shining black stone reflects the lights of the city and the trench beyond it, broken up by the ashes to make it look like she's walking towards a sunset, or as a sunrise. Either way, it's very nice to see, not too bright that it strains the eyes, not too dim, so she can easily see where she's going. There's a spot that is being pointed out to her, and she skids down another dune of white ash to find an area carved into the obsidian wall. Deliberate chunks have been taken out of it. Industrial, practical, and some of it looking recent. There hasn't been much of an ash buildup in the crevice, so it has to be recent. She takes a few pictures and feels her friend whisper for her to turn around. She does and then steps out of the way of a drone descending. It has a sound-baffling aura around it from an Axiom totem. She brushes off a small spot on the top and puts a magnetic tracking beacon on it, even as it carves out another chunk of the obsidian, pulls it into itself, and then flies away. She quickly types up a simple text to Harold telling him that someone is carving out obsidian blocks and their drone is tagged with this tracker. She receives an emoji of a thumbs up, which means he understands. Her friend offers some advice, some very interesting advice. Then she smiles. She wants to see that. So she gets moving. It takes her 5 minutes to reach the cloaked air bike she was using and took off to the city, an address being whispered in her ear as she soars around and quickly finds the right building. The built-in map to the vehicle certainly helps. She finds the right door, a balcony one that has a fair amount of ash pile-up at it that hints that it's no Sneer in there. She drifts over and taps on the door a few times. Waits a minute, then taps again. After a moment, the door is opened by a massive and familiar figure. Warehouse 59B, she says. Pardon. Who's there? Are you a cloaken? Winifred asks. Warehouse 59B, or do you not want more out of life? Insight says at the prompting of her friend. The Asadub woman moves quickly and her hand wraps around part of the engine of the air bike. She leans forward and sniffs, catching some hint, and then slowly tilts her head up to catch where the ash vanishes. You're not Velocity, but you are whatever she is, Winifred says. Why are you doing this? Because it's a good idea. My friend has all the best ones, and she thinks this is a good idea. Does she now? And who is your friend? That's a secret, Insight says, making her air bike start to pull away slowly. Winifred lets her go. Even from me. She then soars away to leave the large bear woman in confusion and blinking hard. She considers again, then ducks inside to grab a light jacket to keep the ash out of her fur, and then leaves for Warehouse 59B. Scene change. Harold and Herbert. A tiny hand rings the doorbell, and the camera above it visually tilts down to see the tiny figure of Private Stream waving happily at it, missing the currently completely uninteresting Harold despite him openly carrying a pop gun. The door unlocks and a security woman, an Ajala in a uniform vaguely reminiscent of the local police, comes out. "Hello, little one. What are you doing here?" she asks as Harold openly frisks her for her wallet and pulls it out. Her tail absently swats at him, and he ignores it as she ignores him. "Hi, I'm Private Stream. You're the big boss here, right?" "You look big enough to be the boss," he chimes out. Harold starts typing out some details because, in his current state, even his brother can't actually perceive him. So he can't just mouth out the words or say things. He has to text. There needs to be some way to test this gift of the Jameson family. It's too useful to be something that can't be taught to others. Even a fraction of this level of raw bullshit would make spy work, assassination, and low-profile bodyguarding a triviality. "No, I'm not actually in charge, young man. I'm the second door. People have to get past me if they want to get in." "Oh, okay, can I come in?" "Why do you want in, little man?" she asks as Harold returns her personal effects and literally shoves her wallet back into her pocket. All he gets is an absent flick of her tail in return. "I watched a really neat drone go by and I want to get a closer look at it. I saw it come here," Private Stream explains. "Did you now?" she asks. "Well, that's odd. I didn't see anything." "Oh, you must have been napping. It flew in through there," he says, pointing to a currently closed automatic window 4 stories up and to the left. The guard leans out and looks at it. "Did it now? Are you sure it was our building and not another?" "It was yours," Herbert confirms in a cheerful chirp. "Well then, let's go take a look. This building has been rented out recently, so it might have been the others. But if you just want to look at a funny drone, then there's no harm in that," she says, and behind his beaming smile, Herbert is concerned. No real attempt to push him aside? She's either truly innocent or has some kind of kidnapping scheme she's about to spring. Either way, the text that Harold gave her with the woman's social security number, date of birth, first and last name, and more showed that despite the fact that Harold was completely undetectable, he was still there. It had been a scary moment to realize that no amount of channeling Axiom through a drone let a drone actually see Harold when he ramped up the stealth effect as hard as it could go. At that stage, it was bad enough that apparently his own reflection seemed to be missing. Harold had tested that and Herbert had taken a 5-minute break to see it in a nearby bathroom. Logically, the reflection stayed there, but he couldn't see his own reflection or shadow when using the power to the utmost. It was terrifying. He wasn't immune to his own stealth, which led to a terrifying question that was boiling into the back of both of their minds. Could their stealth make them forget themselves? Either way, the Ajala woman leads them into the building, aware of only one of the two as she shows Private Stream in. The current renter of the warehouse is some kind of artist working with the local Obsidian. They use this place to store all their raw materials. Do they? What do they make? Is there some place to buy their work? I don't know, actually. What about their name? If I want to buy some art for my big sister, I'd like to find it, Private Stream asks. I'm sure you would. Now the thing is, the Ajala says, leading them into the main part of the warehouse, and there are numerous drones slotted into their mini hangar and large blocks of obsidian in the wall. Wait right there. I think the renter may be in. She then leaves him and Private Stream rolls his eyes. And if she tries something, it's going to be in 3, 2, 1. An air van activates and launches itself. Herbert already braces himself to absorb the impact as Harold rushes off after the security guard. The tiny figure of Private Stream is carried into the doorway of the warehouse, and then comes to a sudden and unexpected stop as a pair of large clawed hands dig into the metal well to either side of Private Stream. Then everything is hefted upwards with a grunt of effort, and the vehicle is slammed down before the grip is relaxed, and the metal of the door is peeled away to reveal a mildly surprised-looking Winifred. And what exactly is going on, little one? A Jella lady tried to kill me when I was asking about the obsidian being gathered in the warehouse she's guarding. Why would she do that? Someone used an obsidian weapon to try and kill Terry and Hafid. Hafid's the crazy one that attacked you, and Terry is his young Tret nephew. How young? Not allowed to drink or vote young, he answers, and her mildly surprised expression darkens. Going after cubs, are they? All right, on my back, little one. I need to have a word with an Agella, Winifred says gently, picking up Herbert and putting him on her back so his arms are draped over her right shoulder. Is the word die? Maybe. You'll need to hurry up then. Harold is here using the family magic to be invisible even when you can see him. He's chasing her down. So is she already dead? He wants information, so maybe. Well, we better see what he's up to then, just in case, she says, walking into the warehouse. Hey, you didn't use much axiom to throw the van, did you? I don't need much axiom to toss around something that light. OOCS Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 373, Capes and Conundrums. Winifred shoves the large drone out of her way. It was a massive load lifter, akin to an automated forklift. Its weight is barely noticeable to her. The tiny figure of Private Stream lets out a low whistle at the sight. So is he actually your brother, or are you just in character? Winifred asks. Private Stream asks her. I know about the Endless Stream Initiative. The Undaunted aren't hiding it. They're proud of it. Low-profile bodyguards that look cute but are effective. It's a selling point. It is. A lot of people sign up just to be streams. But I'm being literal. My proper name is Herbert Jameson. Harold is my clone. Legally, my brother. He's got a mental download of most of my memories and bits from other minds starting several months back. Since then, he's been one of the primary security officers on the Inevitable and has been making a point of differentiating himself from me, Herbert explains. He's been very much his own man for a while, though, but we needed distance at first so he could be that. I see, Winifred says more on reflex as she takes in the information. Are you observant like he is? I don't have his danger sense, but if you want to know what door the woman went through, it's that one. Herbert explains, pointing, and Winifred moves up to the locked door at the far end. I'm getting reports from Harold. His stealth is up, but he can still send text messages. Not talk to you? Nope. Anything that involves seeing or hearing him just vanishes. For some reason, typing gets through, though. This is in spite of the fact that when the stealth is up, you can start messing with people and touch them, and they'll ignore it. It doesn't matter what we smell like, people ignore that too. And I've tested things by sticking my fingers in people's mouths to see if they can taste me when the stealth is up, and I almost got a finger bitten off because they couldn't tell I was there. Herbert explains as they reach the door, and it's locked. He slides off her back and starts opening up the electronics of the wall panel to quickly start hacking things. That's terrifying, Winifred says. The stealth, not your hacking skills. I've seen that before. I even know what you're doing, but my claws are a bit too rough for that kind of delicate work. I'll take your word on your claws. And yes, it is terrifying. I've started a massive bodyguard initiative, and it's all going to go to waste thanks to my own family being the biggest living security breaches in existence, and I am personally one of the 2 Jamesons responsible for ensuring we know about this power. It used to be a quirk. Gorgeous as children, plainer than ditch water as adults. Now we know what it is. We can use it. Do humans have a primal somewhere? This is reminding me of the differences between Nagasha. We jumped ahead of the line, but that was the source of the blank eyes and face markings. The stealth? That's old. That's, strange and doesn't work the way others do. Differences, thanks to primals, are obvious, visible, if not to the naked eye, then in the base construction of the creature. This stealth is something else, Herbert explains. Why are you telling me all this? People don't tend to use protection in the galaxy. There's a chance you've got a Jameson in you. Even if you don't choose to be with Harold, you need some information because there's a chance. It's still too soon for a scan. No, it's not. It's too soon for an OSA dub to be scanned. The thick fur and dense body fat will interfere with it, she says. Oh, My mistake, Herbert notes as he receives a bit of a research update, telling him that the increased power requirements for a scan to penetrate the potential denseness of an OSA dub has a mild chance of harming the developing fetus if the OSA dub in question isn't as dense as assumed, and a nearly guaranteed chance if used on another species. It was considered wiser to use a lighter scan once a week until a month out. Not that I'd have a place among them. Winifred notes, they're warriors, monster hunters, weapon enthusiasts, and specially bred war women. What place would I have among that? Considering your first instinct on hearing that the people here might be responsible for harming a child is to rush in, I'd say a good place. Herbert notes as the door first opens, then starts glowing. It's a portal. Oh, I was wondering what was taking so long. I cracked that in under a minute. Yes, but most undaunted seem to make things work like magic. Under 5 minutes is impressive on an electronically locked door without any knowledge of the password or keycard. I was reading up on what you undaunted have been getting up to. According to some rumors, 5 microseconds is a long time for a door to slow you. She teases and Herbert sighs. Well, it's not just a door, it's a portal. The problem was that there was no real way of telling what was what. He says, turning around and holding up his arms. She gives him a mildly amused look and picks him up and puts him back on her back. The way to open the portal was to put in a different password from the normal one. And where does it lead? Either an underground facility with its own power grid or a ship in orbit, at least from how Harold's describing it. So why did you choose that name for your clone? Winifred asks as she walks into the portal. It just fit and starts with the same general sound, the ha-ha-ha sound. Herbert explains, making an exhale to make the H sound. Not really sure that an exhalation counts as a sound. Well, Harold and Herbert sound different from Harold and Herbert, don't they? There is a sound there, just one that difficult to express on its own, or at least hard to differentiate between natural bodily functions on its own. I see, Winifred notes as a turret pops out of the wall and she catches its barrel as it swivels at her. The weapon then breaches out the side as she's crushed the muzzle completely closed, and it destroys the weapon. She then rips the turret out of its mounting and swings it into the next one that pops out, shattering both of them. A force field springs into place over the door, and she simply steps aside to the wall and digs her claws in to start peeling away the armored paneling like tinfoil. A few torn-out power cables and a solid punch to breach to the other side, and Winifred opens her way into the next bit. You just sheer powered you way into a secure enemy facility, and you don't think that there's a place with you among warriors? I'm doing this because some crazy bitch is trying to murder cubs. Exactly, Herbert says. You fit in far better than you think. Is now really the time? Winifred asks in a suddenly bashful tone. Probably not. Want me to shoot at threats, or do you want to handle them yourself? I can handle myself, but I'm not a hacker. All right, I'm on support then. That's fine. Scene change, Harold. Despite himself, he's almost impressed at how poorly the silly woman is performing. She's done everything in her power to look as guilty as sin, and is she a distraction? And why did it take him this long to realize the possibility? He pulls her communicator and finds that it's password protected right away. He shoves it back in, and after a few moments she reaches the final destination she was going for. A simple terminal that Harold steps up beside her and pays a lot of attention as the room is scanned. He ducks under the scanning beam and hides behind her when he can't. The computer gives out its response in a language that he can't recognize out of hand, but reading the Aguila's body language tells him everything. The scan detected him. She knows she's not alone. She lashes out, but Harold has already climbed up onto her desk as she thrashes through the room. Then he forces up a roof panel and steps away from it as she notices the out-of-place panel and then checks it. Actually fires a few shots down it and then ducks back in. He pops his head up after she's left and sees some rats scurrying around. Ah, she must have spotted the movement. He then climbs up into the gap and then waits as the Agella scans the room again. But he's literally not in there with her and isn't noticed as he drops down after it's done. Still in the supernatural stealth, he sits down next to her and simply needs to wait as she starts using the computer, and he slots in a little data chit that is just recording everything. Ma'am, I think I'm burned. This location is compromised and you need to sever all contacts and links. They're closing in on me as they speak, and I'll be priming the detonation charges after this message is sent. The Agela sends and then confirms things. She then takes a moment to compose herself. This job was completely dung from the start. Perhaps a change of is all Harold gets to say as he lets himself be seen again, completely turning off the stealth. She swings and he gathers Axiom to counter and disperse the blow harmlessly for both of them. That's not nice, especially after I've been playing nice this whole time. What? I could have killed you at any moment. If I wanted to do anything to you, I would have, Harold tells her, and she snorts. Unlikely. Lady, you're clearly not in charge. Did Miss Boss Lady really pay you anywhere near enough to dodge invisible men and have a pissed-off Osa dub bearing down at you? Actually, yes. Those exact words are on your contract? The exact words, no, but I'm being paid very well to do this, she says, and her arm jumps out to press a button, but Harold gives her a heavy kick to the back of the knee and she staggers. He then puts himself directly between her and whatever she's planning on doing. He won't let her finish her orders. So how much is enough to put up with someone like me? Harold asks her in honest curiosity. What, you think I tell on my contracts that I'll just rat out my employer? Yes, Harold remarks. Nothing personal, it's just that thugs in the employ of mysterious sorts generally aren't hired on for their critical thinking skills or ability to retain information. I think the popular description is superstitious and cowardly. I'm neither. Maybe not, but that doesn't mean it's going to help you, Harold says before she suddenly charges. She doesn't have the room to bring her head down at him, but her horns start gouging the walls even before he throws her to the opposite side and he glances back to see it. The actual energetic part is technically in the next room, but there's a container of plasma she nearly breached. He turns back to her as she's moving to draw something, and he rushes forward to crash into her and stun the woman, sending the plasma pistol skittering. She has a slight sense of amusement, and he goes for the pistol before crushing it in his hands. The plasma plume causes his brand to start working a bit as he goes to shoulder check her. She dodges, so he swings out an arm to grab one of her legs, and her response is to grab at the wall paneling with reinforced hand. She rips it out and slams down at him with the metal. He crashes it to Tay's side, but she follows the motion through and throws the shards to the control panel. She smirks as it seems to hit home, and Harold pulls in the Axiom to speed himself up in all aspects. He races across the small room and, sensing where the energy is building up, rams his hand through the paneling to pull out a plasma charge and crushes it well away from the computer. But the machine is going berserk in other ways, and he barely has time to get his data chip out of its slot before it's fried with the rest of the machine. She sees that he went for a data chip she was unaware of and charges at him, just as the door is peeled open under the claws of Winifred. OOCS Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 374, Capes and Conundrums. Are you the girl that's been targeting cubs? Winifred asks. No, we don't have 100% confirmation, but this woman has gone light years out of her way to cover up for her employer, Harold states, and then dodges a swing so hard from the Agela that the wake it leaves blows back Winifred's hair and fur. Okay, calm down, girl. I want all the information, Winifred says before Harold catches the next blow and holds back the Agela. Harold? Terry was poking around an area where his uncle was attacked. Then he was attacked in turn by an obsidian weapon that had a distinct three-claw marking. We've followed the unregistered mining of obsidian from the walls surrounding the city to the warehouse here. Then the moment we started poking into it, we got violence without any provocation. He then turns to the Agela. Seriously, girl? A simple tour without activating the hidden portal would have saved you all this trouble. You're a little too quick on the trigger. We only had suspicions earlier. Now we know you're up to something. And what was I supposed to do? Text your boss partway through the tour, telling her to call you and act like an artist that's refusing a new patron no matter what. A quick 2-minute performance later and your tracks are legally covered, Herbert says as he puts up his hands to draw the air quotes. What? The Agela asks. Yeah, duh, woman. You know when keeping things a secret, that lying is a good idea, right? Harold asks, and the Agela lashes out in rage. I'm not an idiot, she screams at him. Objectively untrue, you've acted like a complete idiot. Granted, you're covering your mistakes fairly well, but the fact we've reached this point at all is a bad thing, Harold remarks. 2.5 stars. Tops. Herbert calls over and Winifred slowly turns her head to regard him. She gets a dazzling smile in return. The Agella lets out a cry of frustration as she takes another swing at Harold, who dodges. But then she pulls on Axiom. Her hoof crashes into the floor, and she uses it to reverse her direction and barrel down at him. But as Winifred is in the path, he catches her instead of just dodging. All right, enough, Winifred states as she reaches in and grabs the Agella by the horns. You will calm down. Harold, you as well. I want answers. I have heard of cubs being attacked. I am seeing violence and irrational behavior. What is going on? She pushes the Agella back, and Harold doesn't pursue, merely waiting on the reactions. The Agella huffs and puffs a bit as she looks around, weighing her options and thinking. Winifred crosses her arms. Well, the Agella rushes to the wall where the canister of plasma is, and Harold intercepts. Please stop and be rational, or I will be irrational. This is not what anyone wants, Winifred says through gritted teeth as the fighting continues. She's going for a plasma container, Harold states, and Winifred steps fully into the room, grabs the Agella around the waist and throws her bodily to the other side. The slightly taller woman moves to charge again, but is grabbed by the head and forced into a corner. No, 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 no. You will calm down now and act like an adult, Winifred says, pressing down hard on the massive woman until she's sitting on the floor. She then crouches down to the Agella's sitting level and points a claw right into her face. Now use your words. This is your last warning. She gets a massive double punch to the gut that sends her flying back, Herbert flying off her shoulder, and she catches herself in the doorframe, denting it around her, and then launches herself forward and slams her own returning punch into the gut of the Agella and embeds her into the wall. The low growling sound that fills the room is as Winifred takes a wide stance with her arms out. The Agella pries herself out of the wall. Should I? Harold begins, and the resulting growl from Winifred has him nod and slip out to check up on Herbert. The prosthetic he's using is reinforced to the point that it's barely scuffed. Well, this is... Herbert begins before both Agla and Osadub come flying through the wall out of the room with a huge roar mingling with a deep bellow. So they've mutually pissed each other off, Harold says as Winifred swipes at the Agella so wide her claws tear through the surrounding walls before being deflected off the horns of the Agella, who snorts hard and uppercuts with enough force to send Winifred staggering back. But the woman is so unreasonably tough that she's only barely off balance and is more than ready to catch the charge of the Agella. Hands grab between claws to try and nullify the paws, but Winifred still has strong jaws and bites down at the Agella's head and is rewarded with a massive bellow of pain. Both brothers have to move or let the brutal fight wash over them. The Agella is clearly more combat-trained and getting in blow after blow after blow. But Winifred is well-fed, and her natural mass and sheer layers of muscle and fat serve as nearly perfect blunt force armor. Winifred lets out a roar as she grabs onto the horns of the Agella and slams her into one wall and then the other before slamming her into the floor over and over again until she crashes through it entirely. There is a momentary pause as Winifred stands at the edge of the hole she just made with her enemy and looks down into it, her nose sniffing and huffing around as she searches for the Agella. She spots what she's looking for and starts ripping through the deck, plating and digging after her. She breaks through, and as she drops to the floor below, Harold and Herbert drop down after her, into a hangar below as Winifred charges the Agella, who grabs one of the shuttles and channels Axiom to hurl it at her. Winifred catches the shuttle and hurls it right back before slamming into the side of the small ship, sinking her claws in and then hefting it into the air and then bringing it down to smash into her. Will? Smash! You! Smash! Calm! Smash! Down! The final smash of the shuttle breaks it into pieces, and Winifred hurls the pieces away before grabbing the Agella by the neck. Well? She's out cold, big girl, Harold calls over, and Winifred snorts before channeling some Axiom, before shaking the Agella awake. Now it's time for some answers. Winifred says with a deep and brutal growl right in the Agala's terrified face. Scene change, unknown. And this is why the security additions are necessary, she says before activating a single device. Seeing everything play out was important, and having the receivers being at least 50% Pro-TN based had spared numerous cameras and microphones. The cost was certainly worth it. But it was a wash now. Things were getting complicated, and if things were being shifted in this angle, then this recently loosened end needed to be snipped. And next time she needed to account for her target being a teleportation savant, but she still needed to get these people away from her actual tools. Either way, she finally releases the button, and the sound of the explosions ring out from her base as she triggers a maintenance drone to remove the receiver for the Protean chips in that base. It'll be in a lava trench soon enough. Scene change. Harold. What? What? No! The Agella calls out as explosions rock the hidden base. There is a slight crunch sound to the following explosions as the floor tilts. The still parked shuttle starts skidding. Fuck, we're terrestrial. Everyone into that shuttle there. Guards, woman? Are there any other base staff? Harold calls over, even as Winifred looks around in shock as the bombs going off has shaken her out of her rage. Are you paid enough to die for this? No, I'm not, and no one else is either, the Agella calls out. Herbert, get the shuttle open. Winifred, get the door open. Agella, get in the damn shuttle. Now, where are the others? They should be coming. What is going on? Why is the base exploding? Who are you people? A pair of Muffy's women in heavy-duty work clothing and eye protection and masks rush in. Harold can spot that the two are covered in black obsidian chips, small enough to get embedded in their clothing, showing that they've been napping and carving the stone in a rough and incautious way. Okay, we got 3. Who else is in this base? Do you have a medical bay? Is someone injured or in a coma? Harold demands. Who are you? The Muffy's on the left demands. Not important. Get everyone out of danger, then start asking questions. Who else is here? They tell him, he nods, then there is a bang as he moves, the deck plating under him shattering as he goes. Are you girls willing to die or something? Come on! Herbert calls over as he opens the door of one of the shuttles and starts inside to take control of it. Scene change. Blazing Iron. All right, need to have a think. Blazing Iron notes as he leans against the wall. Things have gone screwballs in short order, and it was moving fast. Reminded him of the more exciting days of being on the force, before Mangler had gotten her claws sunken so deep into the city and started strangling things out. He pulls out a cleansing roll from his pocket and ticks it into his mouth. The thickly rolled length of medicinal herbs promotes mucus production in his lungs and helps with coughing up any ash that goes down the wrong way. Brings on a nasty coughing fit afterwards, but the big loogie of gray-green gunk going bye-bye and making his breathing come easier is always worth it. Really, still using those? Moni asks him, and he shrugs as he lights up the end of the medical cigar by holding it up and staring at the glowing embers beyond the protective field of the city. He was never the biggest Axiom pro, so he needed some visual help for it. What? It's not like someone else is using my lungs. Besides, I don't think I can pull off ink the way you can, he replies as he takes a deep, fortifying pull of the medicine. He instantly starts coughing. He can already feel it going to work, and the gobs of lung butter forming around the ash inside him. He takes another pull and feels his breath grow shorter for a bit. This was always the worst part, but it was worth it. Necklaces, pendants, rings, earrings. It doesn't have to be a tattoo to keep your lungs clean and clear. I hate the buzz of those things. Worse than this. Blazing Iron says, taking another pull, as deep as he can, but only half as deep as his first puff. So, the Waynes are getting attacked, Money leads with. Yup, is all Blazing Iron can say before he finishes the bit of medicine and begins coughing and hacking up an absolute storm, then finishes by spitting numerous gobs of mucus and ash into a rag he pulls out his pocket. He then stands up straight again and takes a very, very deep breath that nearly doubles the size of his chest and nods. There we go, I can actually breathe again. I forgot you could do that. You forget a lot you don't see, Money. Now, what were you talking about? The attacks? Right. Well, it's one thing to go after Hafid. The man is a menace on a good day, but Terry, no matter what he's dressed in, is still a teenager. And what? You want me to charge off blindly against a calf killer? Kid got away and the jerkwad left a big clue. That's not the point, Moni states. Then what is the point? I'm not seeing any point to anything other than my own horns. Maybe your ears, but not to anything in the situation. Can you take things seriously? Then tell me what you want me to know and stop dancing around the problem like it's going to bite if you don't, Blazing Iron tells her. This could be tied into when you were accused of being on the take, Moni states. Maybe. Anything that has anything to do with Mangler might. What of it? Blazing Iron asks. Damn it, you stupid bull. I left the force because of how they treated you. Yeah, because it spelled out exactly how things were going to go down if you stayed on. Don't try to tell me it was some kind of solidarity. You didn't like me then, and you don't like me now. Don't try to convince me that you were always on my side, even if you've gone and convinced yourself first. OOCS Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 375, Capes and Conundrums. 3 gob drone repair women, a Carib for tuning up Axiom totems, and a pair of Cobes working in some kind of medical lab. At least they're easy enough to carry. Harold flashes into and out of the docking bay, getting glimpses of Winifred breaking the locks off the door and opening it as he carries the rest of the base staff out. By the time he's got the last one, there's a huge crack, as wherever they are starts outright free-falling. Too many unknowns, no more time, and the priority is always lives. He slips into the shuttle and closes the door behind him. If there's anyone I missed, now's the time to say it, because this is our last chance to get someone. This is everyone, one of the Muffies states. Punch it, brother, Harold commands. How about a kick instead? Herbert asks as he takes full control of the shuttle, and it starts doing more than just maintaining position and resisting the pull of gravity. They blast out of the door, and there's a sigh of relief. That's when something under the floor starts giving out a beeping noise. Nope, that's not going to do anything, Herbert notes in a satisfied tone. Bomb? Harold asks, and everyone but him and Herbert look down in shock. Bomb! I only had time to remove the detonators, so no one jumped too hard. The plasma payload is still very alive, Herbert warns them all. Or if you absolutely have to, give me a warning so that I can reinforce the ship first, Harold says as he glances through the crowded shuttle. 12 people in a flying minivan is far too many, and the balance between all the smaller peoples is countered pretty heavily with how badly Winifred and the Agella are packed in. I can't fit to the front. What does it say about our location? We're still on Scathhack. The problem is that we're close to the lava, so the heat shields on this thing will not go down. So we get no visual, just sensors. And we can't exactly forcibly lower the shields without risking the girls in here, Harold notes. Correct. But I can say we're no longer in the same hemisphere as Gotham. Not exactly on the opposite side of the world, but south enough for silly sayings like digging to China to happen, Herbert explains. Got it, Harold says. Can we get away from the lava, please? The heat shields being up is making this can feel claustrophobic, one of the Muffies asks. Already on it. So what's going on anyways? One of the Cobes asks. Things started blowing up and then Mr. Funny Eyes swung in like some hero in a boy power movie. And while I appreciate strong arms around me and a heavily pumping man, being carried to an escape shuttle is a bit different from where I'd appreciate that being. Don't even try, little lady. His family is a warrior family, Winifred notes. And speaking of, were you on the good stuff or the bad stuff when you told me you weren't a warrior? Harold asks. I'm not, Winifred protests, and the Agella snorts so loudly it almost echoes in the tiny space. No, really, I'm not. The cracks in my bones and massive bruising says otherwise. If I was any slower on the Axiom, you'd have reduced me to paste. Perhaps my potential sister-in-law should elaborate as to what she considers a warrior. You know, beyond someone capable of violence when provoked. A warrior lives for war, hence the term. Whether professional or not, a warrior is a mindset where violence is a way of life. And I'm sorry, but violence is what happens when I'm pissed off. Winifred explains before giving the Agella a sharp look. Just as a reminder, if this shuttle is cracked open, the only likely survivors are me and my brother. He has a defensive Axiom brand on, and I'm actually on Centris, Herbert remarks. Should he be driving from hundreds of light years away? One of the Gubs asks. They're probably using protein in that prosthetic. Another mentions. Oh, okay. Hey, do we have to go to, ugh, Gotham? Anne and I live in the southeasterly city, more an industrial base than that insane tourist trap. It's still kind of crazy to me that most cities on Scathach are named for location, Herbert says, and we'll get you there eventually, but you all need to be debriefed first. You all just went through a lot and someone rigged this ship to blow. We need to make sure something worse isn't just around the corner and get a full picture of whatever the heck is going on. Yes, because someone thought they were being slick by sticking their nose where it doesn't belong, then used me for a battering ram in some extreme redecorating, the Agella growls out. If someone was able to use her words and not her fists like a grown woman and not a tantruming child, then maybe she wouldn't have been put through the floor, Winifred counters. Are you going to get between them? One of the Muffies asks Harold. Excuse me. Well, this is some kind of insane lover spat, right? Like in Echo's Mementos, Season 5, Episode 3? What? Harold asks. What do you mean, what? It's only the most popular midnight drama on Flux Time programming. It's amazing that I can perfectly understand what you're saying, but still be completely confused, Harold notes. I've seen a couple episodes of that. It follows a Sonier woman named Echo, who has had a long and storied life, with the framing device being her remembering the origins and such, with the little trinkets she's collected. Mementos, they're mementos, the Muffies protest. Either way, it's an interesting series. Granted, from my understanding, it's been playing so long that when you put together all the life she supposedly lived, she predates the evolution of her own species, Winifred says, and Herbert chuckles at that. From what my contact is telling me, that happened around season 15, was guaranteed by season 18, and we're halfway through its 30th season, Herbert says. Well, there must be something to it if it has that level of staying power, Harold says to play peacemaker. Oh, it's a wonderful show with such involved and intricate storylines that you really need to pay attention to in order to follow. Like the time that Echo's former roommate was involved with a... Ma'am, please, is now the time? Standing on thin ice, brother, Herbert mocks him. Excuse me? Are you or are you not the warrior clone of myself that was created to test weapons against and was released by a spy, an assassin who became your father figure, and then assisted by my great-grandmother-in-law who became as a mother figure to you? Don't make me out to be some sort of soap opera character. You're a step away from being my evil twin. You've always been a soap opera character, Herbert taunts him with glee. Excuse me, I need to smack him hard enough to feel through a prosthetic, Harold notes as he starts moving through the tiny air car. Herbert just cackles. Excuse me, one of the Muffas says as he starts squeezing by. What's a soap opera? I haven't heard that term. Slang term for a drama that uses a bunch of distinct storylines all over, mostly about relationships. Amnesia, sudden twins, and things like that are all over. Echo's Mementos sounds like a soap opera's soap opera, Harold notes. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to commit fratricide. And you're claiming to not be a soap opera character? Herbert eggs him on. Can we not have the pilot attacked while flying inside or above the lava trenches? Please? I can't fly, and if we fall, I'm in a lot of trouble, the Agella says in a deadpan tone. He's just playing, Winifred notes. And how do you know? The Agella presses. I've spent some time with him and his family. Danger is more a quirk of circumstance to him, so they stay playful even in absurd situations. Oh, you're getting into this man's family. Lucky girl, the until now silent Carib congratulates her. How far have you gotten? Has there been anything more than a few chaste kisses in the initial interviews, or is it all but official? Hey, watch it, small one. Those antlers swing around. The Agella protests as the Carib moves around. This is getting ridiculous. How much longer until we can crack a window or something? One of the Gobes asks. Hang on, nearly there. A minute tops. This isn't the fastest shuttle on the market, and if we drop the heat shields too soon, then the controls will get cooked. To say nothing about you girls. Yeah, a gob flambe sounds bad. Flambe. Mitty, I've seen what you eat. Not to mention we're in a potential oven. You're close to a gob souffle? One of the cobes taunts her. You take that back, Atara. Do I need to separate you two? Harold asks. Scene change, blazing iron. You're being unfair, Money states as he pulls out a small flask. I'm being a lot of things, he says, flicking his eyes and his eyes alone to what he's seeing. But he's too damn tall. She misses it, and she's looking at him. He takes a swig from his flask and then throws it hard. It detonates in midair as it intercepts the plasma bolt. Move! His massive hand encircles her arm entirely, and he throws her behind cover while dashing the opposite direction. There's a momentary pause in the firing, as if the shooter couldn't decide who to go for before a shot comes for him. He ducks it and skids behind cover. A follow-up shot takes the corner of the building he's behind, and the stone starts going runny. It won't take more than one more shot before he's completely exposed, and that shot will also spray him with the burning juices. He hears the next plasma shot go off and darts away, full-on charging as his former cover is reduced to a serious issue for the building owner and a heck of a report on the insurance claim. He doesn't need to keep this up for too long. He doesn't get on with Moni the best, but he knows what she can do, and I got her, Moni calls over, and he skids to a stop and turns to walk up to her, dropping all sensation that he was in a rush as if the whole thing was just a part of the plan. How you holding up, Shorty? He asks her. She's got some scuffing on her clothes, but looks none the worse for wear. I've been better, but this could have been a hell of a lot worse, Moni states. Thanks. I'd say you'd do the same for me, but you're a stick on a good day. And her, I thought we were on better terms. It don't matter what terms we're on. I'm not gonna let someone just die next to me, he says before grabbing the suspect and hefting her up with his hand wrapped around the top of her head. Now who are you supposed? Hey, calm down. My capture. Mine. Money protests and he gives her a look before snorting and dropping the perp after flicker her to land on her back and facing upwards. It's a Foza woman, out cold due to Money's knockout effect, and judging from the plasma rifle nearby, definitely the shooter, but the who and why of it needs answering. Don't recognize this one, do you? Blazing Iron asks. Yes, I do, Moni says in a contemplative tone. Well, spit it out. Who's our mystery Fosa? Mercenary, she's recently blown most of her money in the nearby casinos and incurred a debt with Miss Hawthorne. They still investigating that girl? Blazing Iron asks as he looks around and spots Ace lurking nearby, silently but clearly ready to help. Yes, they haven't proven anything about her yet, but the rumors about her being a potential rival for Mangler won't die down. And as they say, where there's smoke, there's fire. They said that about me too, but in my case it was a bunch of broads kicking up enough dust to make it look like smoke. What do you want from me? An apology? No. Who the hell said anything about wanting something? I'm just bringing up the fact that people can start rumors without there being any truth to them at all. Then use them rumors as an excuse to screw someone over, just in case, after all. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right?